We're going to start with you, my friend. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? How long have you been doing this?
My name is Connor Johnson. I am from Burlington, Vermont, so a smaller market, and I've been doing this for about 5 years now.
5 years in Burlington, Vermont, and last year you closed 49 transactions, and this year you're on pace for 75.
Right around there, yeah.
Yep. So from 49 to 75, that's a pretty nice increase.
Yeah, it's been a good year.
When people are taking setbacks because the market's been challenging the first 6 months, they hear that and they say, I don't understand, how can somebody be on pace for more? That's a normal feeling that people have. So why do you think that is? What's the biggest difference this year versus last year?
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest differences is I've been focused a lot more heavily on sellers. And then within that is I have a lot more of a plan this year. I know my numbers, I have actual goals. It's not just one big, hey, I want to sell 100 houses in a year goal.
Yeah.
It's actually, an annual goal. It's broken down monthly, which we'll talk about on the Cumulative board.
Yep.
And within that, then we have weekly, and then what I need to do daily to get there. So the clarity is actually really impressive and something that's obviously really helped this year.
So what I took away from that is number one, you're treating it like a business.
Yep.
And whether you knew this or not, the last 5 years, we didn't really have to treat it like a business. We just had to have good personalities and show up and be professional and sound well and work hard, and we got results. And so you went from doing all those things to now treating it like a business.
Right.
And what I also heard in that is you said, I now have an annual plan, a monthly plan, a weekly plan, a daily plan, and you followed that up with, I just now have clarity about what I need to do. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's just been broken down really easy. In years past, I found, hey, I want to sell X amount of real estate. It's like, awesome, I'm just going to guess at how much work I need to do in order to do that. I didn't really know my numbers. I didn't know conversions. I knew a little bit about it, but not enough. And, through coaching together, we, broke that down, and now I know exactly what I need to do. For instance, all the way down to, it all comes down to how many people you talk to. So I need to make 20 contacts a day. That's the most obtainable and also something that I can directly control, which then directly controls how much real estate I'm actually selling.
So you have bought into this idea that you can arrive at a daily contact number, and that will get you, because you have a plan and understand the ratios, when you plug in those ratios, that will get you to a certain closed number.
Correct.
That's directly correlated.
A lot of things in between, but those are sort of the two opposite ends of the spectrum, and those are essentially the two numbers that it starts and ends with.
Yeah.
In a sense.
So what is your daily number that you have to hit?
It's 20 contacts a day.
20 is the number.
20 is the number.
Not like 20 attempts, 20 actual responses from decision-making adults.
Correct, from decision-making adult, exactly.
Yep. And how long does it take you to get 20 contacts in an average day?
It varies. I would say that, at least usually 3 hours of actual prospecting.
3 hours, yeah.
Is usually the time frame, and then
that's about right. So we used to say it takes about 7 to 10. You can attain about 7 to 10 contacts per hour, depending on the source of business.
Correct.
Right. And also depending on how you're using it. So let's talk about that for a second. What methods do you use to get to that 20 in those 3 hours?
Yeah, so expireds is the biggest one. That's the one that I've never touched on before this year. We talked a lot about that, so now I call expireds every morning.
Yep.
Those are, it's one of my best lead sources now at this point. So that's one of them, and then also past clients.
Hold on a second. Why did you stay away from expireds before?
Sort of everybody's, I thought that, why would they list with me, or why would I take a listing that didn't sell before, or, a lot of different reasons, and, we've heard them all, but just having the clarity around the fact that, actually I've had 10 expired listings sell this year, it's a great source of business.
Yeah. And would you say it's pretty highly competitive in your market, expireds?
It's actually not. So I'm from a small market.
Because it normally is. In big cities, it's highly competitive. So small, you have a little bit of an advantage there.
Yeah, it's been one of those things too where, just doing things that, for instance, you do in Detroit, I'm doing the same thing in Vermont. It's just nobody else is doing them in Vermont. So it's been I've increased my skill set a lot around a market that's not all that skilled in a sense.
Is there a lot of rejection with expireds?
A good amount. I struggle a little bit more with FSBOs than I do with expireds. I find that I usually have pretty good conversations with expireds. I get hung up on every once in a while, but it's the cost of doing business.
Well, here's what I found with expireds versus FSBOs. Expireds are more rejection on the front end, But once you get through a few of the objection handlers and you get to the appointment, it's actually less rejection on the back end. Because they've already raised their hand and said, we're going to sign an agreement with someone. They've already raised their hand and said, we'll pay a commission. They've already raised their hand and said, we can have showings and you can put a lockbox on. They're already like 80, 90% there. It's just choosing a new realtor.
Right.
And so what would you say is the number one reason why these sellers are choosing you over the other agents that do work expireds?
Yeah, a lot of it's just the plan. I'm a lot more well scripted now than I've ever been. I script every morning at 7 o'clock, for instance.
Yep.
So I have that accountability, and my skill set's actually gotten, much greater, really in the last 12 months or so.
Were you script practicing before coaching with us?
I was not.
You were not.
So I was just going at it kind of blind as a
Yep.
kid in his 20s trying to talk to people.
Yep.
Now I'm a lot better versed at, how to handle objections, how to keep someone on the phone, things along those lines, which is obviously increased numbers.
Yep. So 20 contacts a day. What happens if you don't hit that number?
I essentially lose my weekends, so I need to make 100
Can you say that again?
I lose my weekends.
So it's a penalty.
It's a penalty, yeah.
So what does that mean?
So I need to make 20 contacts a day for 5 days a week, so 100 a week.
You have to, by the end of the day on Friday,
Correct.
you got to get to 100, or what happens?
If I'm sitting at 80 on Friday, then I need to somehow find a way to do 20 on Saturday, Sunday. We have our call on Saturday morning, and oftentimes that's followed up by, I need to make 15 contacts before noon and then go on some appointments. So,
Yeah.
There's been some days where I've needed, I've lost a day, or I haven't been great about it Monday through Friday, and now I'm working literally all day Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And I have gotten it every week, so.
And that's the number, no matter what.
100.
So
yeah,
you
on the-
sometimes lose your weekends, but you also gain your weekends when you get it done by Friday.
Right, it's like a reward if you actually do what you're supposed to do in a sense. Yeah.
Okay. So talk to me about this cumulative board.
Yeah, so this is it's been absolutely great for me, and just
They can throw it up on the screen.
yeah, and the clarity of it has been really, really nice. It starts with contacts. It says
Tell us what's going on here. Yeah.
Yeah, it all takes down my. I actually can't read that all
Okay.
that well, but it does.
So what is the? I understand what the months mean. What does the N and the A stand for?
A means actual.
Yep.
N I actually don't know, but you said that you did N and A, so I put N and A.
The N stands for needed.
Needed. Yeah,
Needed.
perfect. Needed and actual. There we go.
Yep.
It's
Okay.
good to know.
That would be helpful. So let's focus on, let's go to, and I know it might be hard to see kind of in the back. Let's just look at closed transactions.
Yep.
So what you arrived at is the first category, so January the N, that's what you need to have happen every single month
Correct.
in order to stay on track with your goal. So the goal is 100 sales.
Correct.
And if you want to do 100 sales, you got to do 8 a month.
Yep.
And so in January, you closed 4, which means you now need, and this is why the cumulative board is so important. I follow this. I credit the cumulative board on the year I went from like 150, 160 transactions to 227. I credit a lot to this board. And I kept it in my office. I mean, Jolene, you remember this was, I've stared at it every day. The reason is because it's awareness. It's you're constantly aware of your deficit, right? I think I talked about that on day 1, being constantly aware of your deficits. Because here's what happens as real estate agents, in January it'd say, well, I'm supposed to close 8, it's 4, I only had 4, it's only January, I could make it up later. And the thing is, then February isn't so great. Oh, I can make it up in the spring, I'm sure the summer will be busy. And this is an awareness of, no, you got a lot of making up to do
Right.
if you want to sell 100 homes. So what happens is when you're aware of your deficits, you're going to act with more urgency to work towards them, and you're actually more likely to hit your goals. Versus just saying, I'll make it up later, I'll make it up later, I'll make it up later. When we say we'll make it up later, we think, all right, my goal's 4 a month, I didn't hit 4, so next month I'll hit 4. No, next month you'll hit 4 plus whatever you were deficit the previous month. So right now it looks like, if you look at, you had 8, which means, the goal was 8, so you had 4, now we're up to 12. You update it every single month, and right now, let's see, in May you needed 14, you had 8 actual. In June you need 14. How many will you close this June?
7.
7.
Yeah.
So that's going to add another 1 to that. You're going to be at 15 needed.
Right. Yeah.
So what are we doing to get you to 100?
So I do have quite a few pendings. That number will get chipped away at going into.
How many do you have pending right now?
16.
16 pending right now?
16 pending.
So that'll chip away at that.
It'll chip away at that nicely. And then, but even then, it just shows too that, if you're trying to sell 100 homes a year, you can't have the 4.
Yeah.
Which was great awareness for me. It was obviously my first time doing this, so
Yeah.
just knowing that, what the numbers are and then not having them roll over is actually
Yeah.
just nice.
So this was the exact board that I had in my office for probably 5 years, and I was always doing somewhere between 150 and 2.25. That was my peak year using this, and just being aware at all times where you're at in your business. I'd encourage you guys to implement the same. So one thing that I know we've been working on a little bit in your business is an area that you shied away from for a long, long time, and that is social media. So talk to me about your thoughts on that and what you're doing to overcome your I guess, lack of time spent on social media.
Yeah, so social media was one that I pushed off for my entire career. I didn't even have, like the last Instagram post I made was like 2017.
Yeah.
I was not on any social sites in any way, shape, or form. You couldn't find me.
Yep.
So I started from scratch. It was one thing that I pushed back on for a long time, and you're like, dude, just do it.
Yeah.
And I sort of swallowed my pride a little bit and did it.
Yeah.
Quite a few things we've done, it's not as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
I have a reminder every day at 7:30 that goes off my phone. Have you posted anything on social media today?
Yep.
I post on Facebook. It syncs to Instagram. It's not all that difficult.
Yep.
I do more stories than posts, but it's something that I'm very much, starting at ground zero and sort of working up to.
So, and it's not distracting you. That's the one thing some people would say, well, clearly he's doing well without it.
Yep.
And the fear that we have when we coach people to do a little bit more social media is that it might distract them or take away from what they're doing. You're so disciplined with your time, you just added it right into your schedule.
At 7:30 at night.
Yeah, happens at 7:30. Can you share with us your morning schedule?
Yeah, so I get to the office every day at 7. I script from about 7 to 7:15.
Yep.
7:15, that's when I'll take a look at expireds or FSBOs, who I want to call that day.
Yep.
And then I actually took essentially your mailer, put my face on it, and
Yep.
send that out.
Okay.
So
We
I
encourage that.
do that. That takes me to about usually 7:45 to 8. At that
Yep.
point, I just sort of research exactly who I'm going to call. I call my first expireds every day from 8 to 8:30. That's the time block for it.
Yep.
Never break that system. I have a team meeting that's sort of in the middle of it. It's not the best thing in the world, but it is what it is, from
Yep.
8:30 to 9. And then I'm actually back after it from about 9 to usually at least 11:30, sometimes up to noon, and then I'll handle transactional stuff that's come in past that. But that's kind of sacred time that I'm not willing to touch.
Yeah. And, he's not the leader of his team, so, when we had conversations about it, I'm like, hey, how do we convince him to move this time? This is a terrible time. It's right in the middle of your prospecting.
Yeah.
All right.
We work around
I'll
it.
make a call for you. I'll work
Yeah.
on that. All right. So what happens if you've got somebody that wants to, have a closing in the morning or they want to see a house in the morning? What do you do in that case?
So showings I definitely won't do, in the morning anyways.
Yeah.
I schedule the way that I like to think of it too is more often than not, I'm busier than the person I'm making an appointment with.
Yep.
So even if it's a little bit back and forth, they can make it work after work or in the afternoon or whatever that looks like. And then Vermont's an attorney state or title companies, it's all the
Yeah.
same. But I send all my business to one attorney. They know to make every closing in the afternoon. My assistant knows to never schedule anything before noon.
Yep.
And oftentimes, when anything comes up between 9 and 12, one thing that we talked about, which was really nice, is a lot of the problems are solved by others by
Yes.
the time I get back to it afternoon. So it's actually just taking a lot off my plate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what it's like. You get messages, oh my gosh, call me right away. This deal's blowing up. Call me right away. It's a deal that's closing in 2 days, right? What? And then you follow up after lunchtime because we're disciplined with our morning schedule because we don't service business in the morning. We generate new business in the morning. We service business in the afternoon. There's no servicing of any business in the morning if you want to have a consistent trajectory of your business like this. So you go to respond to those around 11:30, 12, 12:30, or 1, and half the problems are already solved. Yeah, just disregard my voicemail. We got it. All right, good.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Awesome. Nice job, Connor. Let's hear it for him.